So for those of you that attend LEFC, you know that for the last several years we've been preparing to build and then ultimately building. And it's been such a journey of learning, anticipation, and excitement, but nothing kind of prepared me for the season of when we went to begin to do the earthwork, which was the first phase, and we discovered where we want to put the new building, that the entire portion of that area was solid bedrock. And for 2 months, we had to blast rock to get it down to the level where we wanted the building to be so it could be level. But what it did is it caused us great confidence that this building's not going anywhere. It's going to stay because it is built on the rock. Now, for those of you that are familiar with Scripture, you probably know right where I'm going, because Jesus actually uses an analogy about having our lives built upon the rock, and it's found in Matthew 7, and it begins in verse 24, where it says, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, but it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rains came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." You know, Jesus is looking at a large audience at this point when he's telling the story, and I'm sure because he's God, he knows the history of mankind. He's watched a lot of foolish builders. You know, for those of us that have gone into this season of time, especially since the month of March, all of us have been in the same storm, but we've been in different boats. And maybe you've heard that adage. I've heard it several times. But I think you could add this analogy here, is that all of us have been in the same storm, but the storm has revealed what kinds of foundations our lives have been built upon. And when you think about it, all of us are going through times of uncertainty and a lot of challenges of unlearned experiences right now. It's revealing what the foundations of our lives are. And Jesus says, for those who know what I teach, know how I've lived, and then they respond by living the way he lives and doing what he teaches, he says their lives will be like that house built on a good bedrock, that regardless of whatever storm it is, that person's life is going to do well. For those who have heard and those who have not responded or lived out in obedience, they might go through the storm and are like feeling like their foundations are being shaken. And so I believe that storms like what we're in now can be very revealing, but it's also a season of opportunity. It's a season of opportunity to be able to put your life on better footing. In other words, laying a foundation of living life as Jesus taught and lived. You know, we have this, the marks of a disciple, which says to love God, love others, and to live truth and proclaim Jesus. And I believe those are the patterns modeled by Christ, and if we live those out, we'll live a life that I believe God blesses and says is good. And so it requires being informed by truth, and it requires them being motivated by a love relationship with God, which then will flow into loving other people and ultimately proclaiming Jesus. So see this storm that you currently have as an opportunity to check your foundations. Are you truly living a life modeled and taught by Christ? If so, Jesus promises your life will do well. It will withstand the storms. And this storm will end. That I'm confident about. It will end. But in the end of the day, will you still be standing? Is the structure of your life still standing? I believe this storm will teach us a lot about ourselves. And so it's an opportunity for evaluation, but it's also an opportunity from that evaluation to then live and move forward according to the life of Christ. So may you find that this storm reveals your foundation is good. And if you're finding it struggling, seize the opportunity to begin to live out the life Christ intended. After all, he wanted to see you have a life that was victorious. God bless and have an awesome week.